Good morning, children. Today we are going to conclude the chapter Electoral Politics. We have done page 69, but since it is a very important page, so I am just going to discuss with you, read out to you the important things on this page so that you know that these things are very, very important and we can read them once again today. I am starting with this heading, what makes elections in India democratic? We get to read a lot about unfair practices in elections. Newspapers and television reports often refer to such allegations. When the elections are held, it is often seen in the newspapers that there are reports and on television also that at such and such place elections were the voters were forced to cast their vote for a particular candidate or some unfair means were used in this constituency. Such type of cases often come up during elections. Most of these reports are about the following. Let us see what do these reports deal with. Inclusion of false names and exclusion of genuine names in the voters list. Often this problem is found that in the voters list the actual name of the voter is missing and some false name is present there. Misuse of government facilities and officials by the ruling party. Excessive use of money by rich candidates and big parties. And intimidation of voters and rigging on a polling day. Rigging on a polling day again means that using some unfair means to get maximum votes during elections. So all these things are often noticed when voting is done by the people. Many of these reports are correct. We feel unhappy when we read such reports, but unfortunately they are not on such a scale so as to defeat the very purpose of elections. That means although we see such illegal practices being done, but their percentage is very low, by and large the elections are held in a fair and a democratic way. This becomes clear if we ask a basic question. Can a party win an election and come to power not because it has popular support but through electoral malpractices? This is a vital question. Let us carefully examine various aspects of this question. Independent Election Commission. We have read this last time and I had told you that this heading is very, very important. That is why I am reading this again so that you revise with me and you recall whatever we did in our last class. One simple way of checking whether elections are fair or not is to look at who conducts the elections. Are they independent of the government? Or can the government or the ruling party influence or pressurize them? Do they have enough powers to be able to conduct free and fair elections? Do they actually use these powers? The answer to all these questions is positive for our country. Why it is positive? Because elections and all the things related to elections are under the control of the Election Commission. In our country, elections are conducted by an independent and very powerful election commission. I had told this last time also that you should underline that in our country, elections are held under election commission. It enjoys the same kind of independence that the judiciary enjoys. This also I told you that as judiciary in our country is independent, similarly the election commission is a totally independent body. The Chief Election Commissioner CEC is appointed by the President of India. I am sure you must have marked this as important. Once appointed, the Chief Election Commissioner is not answerable to the President or the government. That means he has been given, after appointment, he has been given complete autonomy, complete freedom to do whatever he feels like as far as elections and the procedure of elections is concerned. The government cannot interfere in his policies. The president cannot interfere in the working. Only the Chief Election Commissioner and All those who are working in the election commission, they are independent of conducting the elections in whatever strict manner they like, so that there are free and fair elections in the country. Even if the ruling party or the government does not like what the commission does, it is virtually impossible for it to remove the CEC. That means once the election commissioner is appointed, chief election commissioner is appointed, he cannot be removed from office just because the ruling party does not agree to what he says, or they don't want to follow the instructions of the election commissioner. No, whether they like it or not, they have to abide by the election commissioner, and the election commissioner cannot be removed. Very few election commissions in the world have such wide-ranging powers as the Election Commission of India. Election Commission takes decisions on every aspect of conduct and control of elections, from the announcement of elections to the declaration of results. It implements the code of conduct and punishes any candidate or party that violates it. During the election period, the Election Commission can order the government to follow some guidelines to prevent use and misuse of governmental power to enhance its chances to win elections, or to transfer some government officials. When on election duty, government officers work under the control of the EC and not the government. I had explained all these points to you in my previous class. In the last 15 years or so, the Election Commission has begun to exercise all its powers and even expand them. That means the powers are becoming elaborate. It is very common now for the Election Commission to reprimand the government and administration for their lapses. That means they can be asked to reason. The government can be asked to give reason why they are not following the instructions of the Election Commission. When election officials come to the opinion that polling was not fair in some booths or even an entire constituency, they can order a re-poll. The ruling parties often do not like what the Election Commission does, but they have to obey. This would not have happened if the Election Commission would not be independent and powerful. So, whether they like it, whether the ruling party likes or not, whether they want to obey the Election Commission or not, they have no other choice but to follow the guidelines of the Election Commission. Popular participation. Another way to check the quality of election process is to see whether people participate in it with enthusiasm. If the election process is not free or fair, people will not continue to participate in the exercise. Now read these charts. Okay, now we are not going to read these charts. Let us come to the first point. People's participation in election is usually measured by voter turnout figures, obviously. In every election, whenever the voting takes place, how will you come to know whether the citizens of the country participated in voting or not, participated in the elections or not? By the number of votes. If maximum people have cast their votes, that means there is large scale participation of the citizens. Turnout indicates the percentage of eligible voters who actually cast their vote. Over the last 50 years, the turnout in Europe and North America has declined. In India, the turnout has either remained stable or actually gone up, because the people of our country, as far as voting is concerned, they are very vigilant and they don't want to miss that opportunity to cast their vote. Second point. In India, the poor, illiterate and underprivileged people vote in larger proportion as compared to the rich and privileged sections. Yes, it is often seen. Sometimes you must have seen in your colony or maybe in your family, in your house itself, the educated ones, the rich ones, sometimes have this mentality that no, why should I go to cast my vote, what, one vote is not going to make any difference, now leave it, who is going to stand in a long queue to cast the vote. Such type of mentality the rich and the educated classes have. But if you go to the villages, if you talk to the illiterate people, if you talk to the villagers, you will find that they will leave all their work that day, but they will go to cast their vote. They will not do any work until and unless they cast their vote. They will take leave from their workplace. They will miss their daily routine. Some of the works can be kept pending, but they will not miss the opportunity to go and cast their vote. They are very particular as far as voting is concerned. This is in contrast to Western democracies. For example, in the United States of America, poor people, African Americans and Hispanics vote much less than the rich and the white people. Then in the third point, they have just shown a picture. There is no need to read this. No, sorry. The third point is there. Common people in India attach a lot of importance to elections. Yes, definitely. They feel that through elections, they can bring pressure on political parties to adopt policies and programs favorable to them. They also feel that their vote matters in the way things are run in the country. This vigilancy is coming, it is coming more nowadays. People are realizing the fact that each vote has equal value and each vote is very important. If they want a good governance in the country, if they want to see that their wishes are fulfilled, then they must bring such a government in power that can fulfill their wishes, and so they go to cast their vote. Fourth point, the interest of voters in election related activities has been increasing over the years. During the 2004 elections, more than one-third voters took part in the campaign related activities. More than half of the people identified themselves as being close to one or the other political party. 1 out of 7 voters is a member of a political party. Acceptance of election outcome. One final test to the free and fairness of election has in the outcome itself. That means if you want a particular party to win the election, and if that party has actually won the election, that proves that it was fair and free election. If elections are not free or fair, the outcome always favors the powerful. In such a situation, the ruling parties do not lose elections. Usually, the losing party does not accept the outcome of a rigged election. The outcome of India's elections speaks for itself. The ruling parties routinely lose elections in India both at the national and state level. In fact, in every 2 out of 3 elections held in the last 15 years, the ruling party lost. In the US, an incumbent or sitting elected representative rarely loses an election. In India, about half of the sitting MPs or MLAs lose elections. That means those who are in the ruling party. Candidates who are known to have spent a lot of money on buying votes and those with known criminal connections often lose elections, because now the people are aware. Barring very few disputed elections, the electoral outcomes are usually accepted as people's verdict by the defeated party. That means the defeated party by and large accepts this fact that this is the people's decision, whether they have won or they have lost. Challenges to free and fair elections. All this leads to a simple conclusion. Elections in India are basically free and fair. Elections in India are basically free and fair. The party that wins an election and forms government does so because people have chosen it over its rivals. This